and the sooner is the better. Now, having stating that as a clear policy objective, we, having been through the process at an earlier stage, are in no doubt about the difficulties and the challenges that that poses. And I would say that at the outset, I think at the heart of the challenges as we found it, and as I recall, I didn't lead that process. I wasn't even integral to it, other than as a cabinet minister. Those discussions we were party to that discussion. As foreign affairs minister, I was away most times, or a lot of times, and therefore did not hear many of the discussions that went on. But I know that I had a distinct impression from those discussions that an important deficiency of that process was the absence of trust. It was a trust element in it, and that should come as no surprise to those of us here who are Jamaicans and understand enough to deal with the daily cut and thrust, not only of politics but of social interactions. And unless we can find ways and means of getting that element at the center of the process, I think we would not have really started to really, in a meaningful way, get that partnership together. And the partnership, of course, we've been talking about the social partnership, and I think it begs the question, what are we really talking about, and who are these social partners? Some people take it for granted that they know exactly who those are because it's self-identifying. And you'd quickly rattle off, well, the government, to be sure, the private sector, and the unions. But maybe it is more than that. Maybe it is more than that. For example, I think we have to find a way. The top-down approach probably have not worked. Our approach was very much a top-down approach where we sought to give the leadership. Maybe in parallel with that, we have to get the wider stakeholdership involved in the process. Now, how do you do the citizenry? I'm talking about. How do we do that? That's a broad and difficult challenge, because some would argue, and the obvious challenge is, well, you can't have a cabal at the table discussing anything. You really have to have a focused group talking about these issues. Well, again, it is one of the challenges. We have to find the ways and means of, I believe, getting the other parts of that social partnership, the broad social partnership, in place. Because I feel if we can do that, that will provide the engine. The three players that we've identified as the key participants in that, all have their constituencies, and it's both a strength and a limitation. And perhaps it is the ultimate beneficiary of the exercise, the citizenry of this country, that we have to find a way and means of getting their voices heard and be part of that process, because I think it is only then that we'll probably get the push. The other actors, three actors, main actors if you will, to get the push and the resolve to carry on and to get on with the work that is needed, and to make the commitments, the necessary commitments. But perhaps it's also a question of timing, because things were challenging and difficult then. I think by any objective measure, things have gotten worse, and I believe that sometimes in crises comes impetus, where there are reservations sometimes in making the difficult decisions and taking the necessary steps. Sometimes it's the context of a crisis that, and the crucible, in that crucible we find the necessary strength, the clarity of vision, the fixity of purpose to make the difficult choices and to get on with what all of us know is an indispensable part of our national development. In the conversation, I must confess that in trying to address this question of trust and to see how we can resolve that issue, in the early meetings that I had with Mr. Hanran and John Rapley, a very interesting idea was put, certainly as part of the description of the Ireland process, and the point was made by Mr. Hanran that perhaps even as Jamaica has studied the Ireland process for quite some time, I've known of at least 3 or 4 delegations that have visited Ireland at various points in time and having in-depth meetings with the key actors in Ireland, trying to distill or to capture what were the key elements of that of the successful model that Ireland now operates. And yet we obviously have gotten it wrong, or our environment simply rejects foreign things. And I don't think that's generally true, but on this question of the social partnership, maybe the antibodies are too strong or too weak, and the disease has simply enveloped us, and we have not had the results that we wanted. But Mr. Hanran made us an observation that, and I'm sure he'll share with you this morning if he hasn't. I mean, I'm sure he has met with all the actors separately. But I found interesting the point of view that the Ireland process, he believes, he posits, and I'm interested in that viewpoint, that the Ireland model may have worked because one of the things they did was to have a secretariat in the office of the Prime Minister, and I think he chairs it or certainly is involved in it. But that secretariat had the task of generating the data, the evidence, the policy approaches, and it had the advantage in that I don't know if it was legislatively based, maybe not, but it had the advantage that whichever party was in power, they would know that this institution will be at work, whether there was a social partnership or not. But the point is that the institution was not per se interested in a particular outcome, but was very much part of a process, providing the data, providing the information. And you'd say, well, we may have had something like that in the council, in the economic council, the one with the PIOJ, where you met ever so often and you had a discussion. I don't think that was the same thing. We didn't, to my recollection, have a secretariat, a dedicated secretariat at the heart of this process that was, in a sense, not really interested in the outcome. In fact, separate from the outcome. So what in fact we are focused on were the agreements that have been reached without looking at the machinery and the apparatus in getting the agreement and creating the environment for getting an agreement. And I would think that is something that perhaps if we are recommitting ourselves to this process, all of us, that we may want to look to as a missing link in this exercise. I certainly am sufficiently interested enough in it that I will be continuing a dialogue with CaPRI on this question. Certainly awaiting the outcome of this perhaps desktop approach at this stage. I simply I don't want to say too much more than to say the now opposition, then government, remain as it was, firmly of the view, grounded in the fact and the reality that government, governance, cannot and will not be effective in this period of globalization unless we have a deepening of the democratic process, which results in a coming together across sectors and across party lines of the critical issues that faces the country. And I think the social partner approach holds much and recommends much to us in Jamaica. Whether we can make it work continues to be the big question. We need help. Thank you.